As the sun dipped below the horizon, the isolated forest clearing was enveloped in an unsettling twilight. After a tiresome journey, Laura and her friends made it to the eagerly anticipated music festival. As Laura got out of the car and took in her surroundings, she was filled with excitement. Majestic trees encircled the clearing, their gnarled branches reaching for the sky like twisted arms. She felt an uncomfortable sense of isolation as she realized how far away from civilization they were. Laura couldn't help but feel liberated from the monotonous routine of her daily life despite her unease. A 3-day escape from reality was promised by the music festival, which she longed for. Laura noticed the festival grounds were humming with activity as she absorbed the energetic atmosphere. In the impromptu campsite, groups of people bustled about, laughing and chatting as they erected their tents. The aroma of food emanating from nearby vendors filled the air, and a faint musical hum could be heard through the trees. Sarah and Jack, Laura's friends, started taking their camping supplies out of the car. As the three friends worked together to set up their tent, a feeling of camaraderie swept over them. A cool breeze that was rustling the leaves above sent a shiver down Laura's spine as the sun finally set and was replaced by a moonlit night. It appeared as though the forest itself was beckoning in an ominous manner. Directing their tent, Laura, Sarah, and Jack went in search of the festival's center. The stages were decorated with colorful lighting, which highlighted the crowd's animated faces. Laura felt the music pulse through her body, stirring her spirit and obliterating the eerie forest whispers. However, she couldn't get rid of the feeling that something was lurking in the shadows of the trees, just out of sight. As the evening went on, Laura and her friends danced and embraced the energized ambience. The festival fulfilled all of their expectations and provided a brief escape from the everyday world. Laura looked in the direction of the edge of the clearing as she swayed to the hypnotic beat. The darkness beyond appeared to close in on the celebration as if it were a living thing watching for an opportunity to stoop in. Laura pushed the unsettling feeling out of her mind despite her nagging intuition. Her weekend of freedom was not going to be ruined by anything. She couldn't help but wonder if the old forest held secrets that were best kept hidden as she turned to face the sea of faces engrossed in the music. She had no idea that the unseen melody that stalked the woods was about to collide with her world and change everything. The forest floor was covered in dappled shadows as the morning sun peeked through the dense tree canopy. Laura jerked awake, startled by the strange surroundings. She rubbed away the sleep, her thoughts drifting back to the fun of the night before. She noticed the formerly bustling festival grounds were now in disarray as she left the tent. Evidence of the chaos that had descended upon the crowd included food scraps and abandoned clothing that littered the area. To learn more about the festival and to see what the new day would bring, Laura, Sarah, and Jack made the decision. They overheard whispered conversations between other festival goers as they meandered through the maze of tents. There was a noticeable sense of unease. They soon discovered that several people had mysteriously disappeared overnight, leaving behind their possessions and friends. The three friends initially discounted the rumors as the result of excess and drunken antics. But as the day wore on, an increasing number of people seemed to vanish. The campfire was filled with echoes of fear and confusion as the once fun atmosphere changed to one of melancholy. Laura began to feel even more uneasy than she had the previous night, and her gut told her that something sinister was going on. A chilling fog rolled in from the depths of the forest as darkness descended once more, engulfing the scene in its oppressive embrace. The music of the festival, which had once represented freedom and excitement, now had a sinister, dissonant tone. Laura's nerves were on edge because it seemed like the very air was vibrating with evil energy. She couldn't get rid of the feeling that something was watching the festival attendees from just beyond her line of sight. Laura made the decision to look into the disappearances because she was determined to understand the bizarre events. She entered the forest carrying a flashlight and her insatiable curiosity, leaving Sarah and Jack behind to make sure they were safe. The atmosphere grew more oppressive as she moved deeper into the woods. The shadows appeared to move and sway all around her, confusing her. The trees seemed to be trying to entrap her in their grasp as their branches reached out to her in hushed whispers. Laura came across an abandoned campsite as she kept looking. In the shadows, a fire's embers, which were once warm, were still smoldering. The festival goers scattered, abandoned belongings were gathered around the dying fire. As she became aware that the rumors were accurate, people were actually disappearing without a trace, she was no closer to understanding why. Her heart began to race. Laura had no idea that the forest held a sinister secret. Ancient beings that had emerged from the whispers and shadows of the trees were watching her every move. They had been captivated by the festival's music and energy and curious about the people who dared to intrude on their territory. Laura became enmeshed in a terrifying game of cat and mouse where the stakes were higher than she could have ever imagined as the line between reality and folklore blurred. Deeper into the ancient forest Laura went, the more determined she became to find out what was really going on with the disappearances. The twisted shapes of the gnarled trees around her appeared to come to life in the darkness as her flashlight cast eerie shadows on them. Every branch breaking or leaf rustling sent a chill down her spine, giving her the impression that someone was watching her every move. Laura noticed that the forest seemed to come alive with an ethereal presence as she continued on her journey. The haunting melodies of the festival seemed to reverberate in the air, which was heavy with a pulsing energy. It seemed as though the music had roused a long-dormant secret from the woods that had been sleeping. The distinction between fact and fiction became more hazy as the shadows appeared to dance around her and whispered legends from long ago. Laura suddenly noticed a flicker of movement at the edge of her field of vision that appeared to be extraterrestrial. The whispers of the trees prodded her to continue as she followed the elusive figure deeper into the woods, her heart racing. The ancient woodland creatures that had lived in the forest for ages were then discovered by her. Their shapes, a combination of shadow and light that seemed to defy the laws of nature, were both captivating and terrifying. The eyes of the which were shimmering with an inner glow, looked at Laura with a mixture of curiosity and caution. They were both fascinated by the human who had the audacity to enter their territory and incensed by the festival-goers' entry into their sacred forest. The ethereal beings were becoming more agitated as Laura approached them cautiously, and the area around them was trembling with an eerie energy. Laura made the decision to contact the local historian she had heard about after realizing she needed more information to comprehend the mysterious and their connection to the disappearing people. The historian, a reclusive woman by the name of Evelyn, had devoted years to studying the forest myths and folklore. She allegedly had knowledge of woodland secrets that very few people had ever discovered. Evelyn was discovered by Laura in a small, abandoned cabin at the edge of the forest, hidden by overgrown vegetation. Laura was greeted by the elderly woman with a knowing smile as if she had been anticipating her arrival. Evelyn imparted her expertise on the fae and the antiquated magic that bound them to the forest over steaming cups of herbal tea. Laura listened intently to the tales of the fae as the night wore on, enthralled by the descriptions of their ethereal existence and the power they possessed over nature. She started to understand that the fae weren't just mythical creatures. They were actual, living things who had been stirred up by the festival's music. They were now looking for retaliation for the disturbance of their holy home, and learning more about the fae and the threat they posed. Laura realized she had to find a way to shield her friends and the other festival attendees from their wrath. She prepared to face the ancient beings that had haunted the forest for centuries, determined to discover their secrets and save the lives of those who had vanished without a trace. As the shadows grew darker and the whispers in the woods grew louder, Laura returned to the festival grounds bearing the weight of her newfound responsibility after learning about the fae and their relationship to the forest. The once jovial atmosphere had been replaced by a tense one as the remaining attendees were overcome by fear and uncertainty. Whispers of the paranormal reverberated throughout the campsite as the disappearances had grown too frequent to be ignored. Laura tried to persuade them of the truth regarding the disappearances because she was determined to save her friends and the other festival attendees. She related the legend of the ancient fae and their fury at the festival's invasion of their sacred realm. Her warnings, however, were met with skepticism and a lack of belief because many believed that she was simply exaggerating. The remaining festival goers, however, were unable to ignore the horrifying reality as the night wore on and more people went missing. The eerie whispers of the forest grew louder, a haunting chorus that announced the approach of the fae, and the shadows that crept through the campsite seemed to be alive with an unseen presence. Assembling a group of courageous and desperate individuals, Laura led them into the heart of the woods with the intention of confronting the fae and rescuing the festival goers who had been abducted. As the line separating the human world from the fae realm grew thinner, the air around them began to crackle with an electric energy. Laura and her group arrived in front of the ethereal beings thanks to Evelyn's ancient wisdom and the guiding whispers of the trees. The fae's eyes, which shone like stars in the night sky, twinkled as they regarded the humans with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. As she spoke to the prehistoric creatures, Laura moved forward while maintaining her composure. She begged for the release of the festival goers who had been taken prisoner and acknowledged the ire of the fae at the disturbance of their sacred forest. As the fae deliberated her words and fixed their otherworldly gazes on her, tension permeated the room. It became clear during the negotiations that the fae would not be easily placated. A hunger that could only be satisfied by the lives of the people who had dared to enter their territory had been sparked by their connection to the music and energy of the festival. Laura became aware that she was enmeshed in a perilous game of cat and mouse in which the lives of her friends and the other festival attendees were at stake as the air around them hummed with the power of the fae. Laura and her group faced the fae with defiance, their hearts racing with a mix of fear and tenacity. The ancient creatures' eyes sparkled with an otherworldly light, and they appeared amused by their audacity. It was obvious that the kidnapped festival goers couldn't be saved with just a simple pleading for mercy. Laura was aware that she would have to provide more in order to satiate the fae's appetite and persuade them to release their prisoners. Laura put forth a risky suggestion, basing it on the information she had learned from Evelyn. She proposed a musical competition, a clash of tunes that would decide the abducted festival goers' fate. Laura and her band would be granted permission to save their friends if they could write a song that embodied both the spirit of the forest and the Fae. However, if they failed, they would meet the same end as those who had disappeared before them. The Fae accepted the challenge because it piqued their interest. The festival goers who had been kidnapped were called forth, emerging from the shadows with glassy expressions of both fear and wonder. The air around the humans and the Fae seemed to vibrate with anticipation as they gathered in the moonlit clearing, and the forest itself seemed to be holding its breath. A diverse group of musicians and artists, including Laura, started working on their song. The song's melody was melancholy and ethereal, a fusion of traditional beats and contemporary harmonies that perfectly encapsulated the spirit of the forest and the Fae. The music reverberated throughout the forest, awakening the dormant magic tucked away in the trees. The Fae stood mesmerized, their eyes wide with amazement and admiration as the enchanted requiem reached its crescendo. The song that the humans had managed to write resonated with the ages-old power of the forest and spoke to their very souls. The Fae freed their prisoners so they could go back to their friends and families because they were powerless to resist the music's beauty. The events that had taken place had altered the festival for all time. So it ended suddenly. With their minds filled with a newfound respect for the ancient world that lay concealed within the shadows, the remaining attendees, shaken by their encounter with the paranormal, packed their belongings and left the forest. On the last day, Laura stood at the edge of the clearing as the sun rose, gazing out over the woods that had forever altered her life. She was aware that the Fae continued to observe from the shadows, their antiquated magic woven into the very structure of the forest. The enchanted requiem would resound through the trees long after the festival had ended and the music had stopped, serving as an eerie reminder of the melody that had roused the spirits of the forest. In the months that followed the tragic festival, the forest went back to its long-forgotten sleep, with the sounds of birdsong and whispering leaves taking the place of the music and laughter. As a chilling tale that served as a reminder of the precarious balance between the natural world and the supernatural realm, the legend of the Fae and their enchanted requiem spread among the local townspeople. Their having her life changed by her encounter with the Fae, Laura became fascinated by the secrets of the forest and the prehistoric creatures that lived there. She committed her life to learning about the Fae and their ethereal world, seeking to learn the long-kept secrets that had been kept from the public. As the years went by, Laura gained a reputation as an authority on the Fae and their antiquated magic, and both academics and mystics sought out her knowledge. Her haunting memories of the enchanted requiem and the otherworldly beings who had captured her heart led her back to the forest frequently. During one of these excursions, Laura discovered a secret grove tucked away in the woods, untouched by time. The grove's air shimmered with an otherworldly light, and the aroma of old magic lingered strongly. Laura learned about the true nature of the Fae and their connection to the world around them here. Among the twisting roots and swaying trees, she discovered that the Fae were more than just commonplace forest spirits or creations of folklore. Rather, they were the living embodiment of the forest's life force and the result of centuries of ancient magic. The Fae held the power to defend and destroy, to heal and harm, as they were the forest's watchdogs. And it was this festival music, awakened power, had endangered festival-goers' lives and propelled Laura to engage with the enigmatic beings. Laura came to understand that the enchanted requiem had not only saved the lives of her friends but had also established a connection between the world of the supernatural and the world of the living as she learned more about the mysteries of the Fae. This connection, created deep within the forest, gave Laura the rare ability to traverse the chasm separating the worlds, enabling her to converse with the ancient spirits and gain insight from their knowledge. Laura was aware that this gift carried a heavy burden because it was easy for those who lacked understanding of their power to act carelessly, upsetting the delicate balance that existed between the human world and the Fae's realm. She then committed herself to guarding the forest and its flora and fauna, turning into a keeper of the shadows and a guardian of the ethereal melody that had irrevocably changed her life. As the years progressed into decades, Laura's legend grew and her name began to circulate among the forest's animals and plants. Even though the festival had long since passed into obscurity, the echoes of the enchanted requiem persisted in the woods as a melancholy reminder of the thin line dividing the living world from the Fae realm.